Everybody. You are all hopefully slowly making your way in. So I'm Samina Safdar, and hopefully you are in the Zoom room you intended, where we'll be covering mastering social media for your organization and you. So I'm going to go ahead and just start a little bit of who I am as we wait for more folks to come in. So as I mentioned, I'm Samina Safdar. Some of you I may have met at the mid-year meeting, the NCBP mid-year meeting. I was very happy to speak on the plenary session there and to do the first part of our social media training there. So that was more focused on individuals, and now we're going to focus more on organizations. I am the founder and CEO of a digital media consulting business, Amplify Your Voice. Quite specifically, I am a lawyer by practice and training. I clerked for the Eighth Circuit, and I practiced for 1 year and 9 months. 9 months of which was spent figuring out what else I wanted to do to my life or with my life, because I didn't love the practice of law. I loved the business of law. I ended up in legal technology, sales, and marketing the last 20 years at big and small tech companies. And now what I do is I help companies and individuals, specifically in the legal industry, I would say. So I work with lawyers, law firms, legal technology companies, bar associations, et cetera, on how to hone their personal brand or their company brand and then amplify it online through social media. And if you think that is a nice to have, I will tell you, you're sadly mistaken. Anybody who Googles your name, the first or second result will be your LinkedIn profile. And we will be focusing a little more heavily on LinkedIn today than the other platforms because so many lawyers do sit on LinkedIn. I really encourage authentic sharing of who you are in your company. So a little bit more about me is detailed here. And if any of you are connected with me on LinkedIn, you will quickly find this out because these are all the types of things that I share a lot about. And, the authenticity for me will extend to GIFs and memes. You will see GIFs and memes in my social media posts. You will also see them here today as well. So just be ready for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our agenda today. So we're first going to do a little bit of a recap of why social media is important, because I know we're going to talk about how you create more engaging content, both in optimizing your posts and in content that will get more people engaged with it. And we'll talk about some specific strategies for driving engagement with your content. I want to make sure there's plenty of times for questions throughout. So I will have dedicated time for questions, but don't hesitate to speak up if you have a question. And, that way I can address it at a time, or if it's something that needs a little more attention, I might say I'm going to parking lot it to the dedicated question time later in the session. But I'm pretty easy breezy with those things. You'll also get a little hands-on practice, and don't worry, this isn't like Socratic method and you won't have to do it on your own. You'll be working with your fellow participants. But I always think it's less scary to do something once you've done it once before. Then you realize, oh, it's not as scary as I thought. Okay, so we will go ahead and get started. So in terms of social media, a lot of people are like, why should I bother with this, Samina? I've worked very hard on this trial, or my bar association put on this good program or whatever, and people who were there loved it. And that's great. But guess what? Who knows about that event? Maybe the people who were in the room, whether that's a physical room or a Zoom room, maybe you posted about it on social media beforehand with a link to get people to register. But if people weren't there, how do they know what happened? How did they know what the best practice, best practices and takeaways were that the panel of folks recommended? How do they know whether they might want to attend your next session? And that's where posting on social media is really going to be a key for that. Beyond that, I know at our plenary session at the mid-year meeting, Tracy Fightlove, who is the founder of Lawyers for Good Government, really talked about that there's a lot of lawyers out there who want to take action, who want to drive improvements in our industry and practice, but they just don't know how, or don't have, like, they're just not sure how to make that happen. And so she talked about that a lot of people are out there just looking for that spark, looking for other people who share their ideas and values and want to drive positive change the same way. And your social media can be a way to do that. I will tell you, I prepare social media for a nonprofit focused on diversifying the appellate bar, so the Appellate Project. They actually do year-long mentorships with law students of color, many of whom are first generation and not only don't know much about appellate law, but are actively not directed to pursue that path. And after Students for Fair Admission cases came out last June from the Supreme Court, we had already, thinking the decision might go that way, had talked to a lot of our students about why the decisions were important for them or why they think diversity in higher education is important. And we put out a video or a carousel of all of these different students talking about, you know, what Justice Thomas actually said during the opinion. Why is diversity in higher education important? And so we put that out at a time when people who do this type of work were really dismayed by the way changes were happening. And one of our mentors reached out and said, you know, I always feel better when I see the social media posts from your company to know that other people care about the same things I do. It always gives me a little lift to remind me why I'm doing this work and why I need to continue doing it. So know that your social media can really help someone else's well-being. And you guys are all in these roles because you're doing a lot of work with your bar associations. You're trying to make a difference. So it can be a great community. Okay, so now we're going to go into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how you actually do this. And I am talking to you both as individuals who will be doing social media for yourself to amplify what you're doing, but also because you're all leaders of your own bar associations. And then also some of this is directly for NCBP. So for you know, both the volunteer and the paid staff who are going to be working on social media. So here's the nuts and bolts of how you go about this. The first thing I would encourage before you just start going off and drafting new social media posts is creating a comprehensive organizational strategy. And so you'll want to do that by seeking input from other stakeholders. So, you know, it's not just your communications committee and your leadership, but you might want to be talking to your board or your council. You might want to be talking to other organizations that you tend to partner with. And then you want to really consider which tools and platforms you'll want to use for this. There's a lot of free tools out there. There's also a lot of tools that give a discount to nonprofits so that you can make this as easy as possible. Because, you know, if your bar association is like many others, you probably have a very small amount of paid staff and you probably have volunteers who are doing this. So you want to use scheduling tools and aggregators and things that make it as easy as possible. Then the next thing that's really key is creating a social media policy. It will both help the people who are actually engaging in putting up the organization social media, but also others who might want to amplify or engage with that social media. So giving the goals to help people understand we're not doing social media just to put ourselves out there on the web for people to see. We're doing this because we want to amplify the mission and values of our organization, or we want to make sure that newer attorneys know about what we're doing or this type of thing. So you'll cover everything from goals and content and comment moderation to some really specific legal issues like copyright issues, or again, the content moderation, how to handle customer inquiries. It'll be a little bit of a combination of both a legal document and also a guidance document. So maybe if you've not seen the term RACI before, but it's basically who will have responsibility or accountability or be on informed basis only for certain tasks with your social media, and then setting some KPIs in place because data really matters. You know, with my clients, we've been carefully looking at engagement across platforms, especially since Twitter changed to X, ownership changed, and we've seen, you know, some of our followers there flee to other platforms. So it's definitely something to be looking at statistics every month, and then setting a date to review your strategy on a regular basis. So here's just an idea of the types of things you'd put in a sample social media policy. You know, it will cover everything from the desired tone, approach, and style to tactical guidelines in terms of, okay, if we have, you know, for a bar association that I do social media for, one of my clients, they have a paid staff person who does all social media pre-events. So if there's a big conference coming, if there's a webinar, whatever it is, they will do a social media beforehand and make sure there's a registration link and everything. I cover all of the amplifying social media after the fact. So I'm contacting the program chairs to say, hey, what were the takeaways? Do you have photos? So I'm putting that together unless leadership reaches out to me and says, hey, we really want help amplifying our well-being conference, and we're going to have the program chairs send you a few of the topics each panel of our annual well-being conference is going to cover, and we'd like posts once a month beforehand. So just something like that to ensure that, because you probably have a small lean team, you're getting things done as efficiently as possible. Okay, so now let's get into the fun part in my mind. We're going to get into optimizing your posts. And the first thing is starting with really compelling content. So you can see this guy's out there looking for that compelling content. And the thing is, you have a lot of content already within your bar association, I'm sure, but there's also things happening out there in the world that could be helpful. So, looking at what's happening out in the world. Now, this was not me suggesting that you should put up a post for St. Patrick's Day or American Chocolate Week, but there are websites out there that are free, like National Today, that will give you an idea of different days or weeks that are coming up that you don't want to forget about. You may not want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but you might want to put up posts and profiles of members of your organization for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So you might want to plan ahead for that. And having a content calendar where you've got those things laid out along with your own events. So if you know that you have a mid-year meeting, if you know you have a big new member reception or an annual dinner, you can plan out your content based on both, again, things happening out in the world and things happening in your organization's world. So, I did a really fun post recently for Groundhog Day for my organization focused on law students, talking about don't be scared of the shadow if your first semester grades weren't what you hoped they would be. Persevere, the sun's going to come back out, that type of thing. Now, in terms of other content, you can use really predictable monthly content. So for instance, this first post is something monthly that one of my organizations does, where we just congratulate people on accomplishments they've had, new roles, awards, anything like that, which you can see. Ironically, I had to put up a post celebrating myself on my own new job. But it was nice. I was like, okay, well, I would do that for anyone else, so I'll include myself here as well. But if you've already got this, that's one post you have every month. You encourage people to send in content. So definitely share with us when you're getting awards, when you're taking on new roles or new jobs. If you've argued, we put up one that a member of our organization, had argued their first Supreme Court argument. Things like that. And I'm also going to show you ways to make sure you find that content, whether your members send it in or not. Over on the right, we can see a profile that we've done. So we'll do profiles of different members, but rather than just putting up a link to the profile, we'd like to take a quote from the profile and post it with information on who that attorney is, and even a little bit of, a snippet, an excerpt of what they said. Now, another one that you can do pretty easily, and I'm hoping I'm sharing so this video will share. There's not actually sound, so hopefully it'll play either way, but is taking any newsletter that you've already done on a monthly basis and turning it into a quick video for social media. So you can use a free tool like Canva to take screenshots or slides out of your newsletter and turn it into a social media post that can go across LinkedIn, X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to share. But it means that people who are not even your members are going to see the types of things you're doing. And it's giving you a chance to work smarter and not harder, so that you're able to take the content you're already creating elsewhere and turn it into social media posts in a pretty easy manner. Oh boy, I need that to stop playing. I don't know. Can you guys hear that sound at all? It's a very jazzy, Whiplash style music. So anyway, the other thing is you want to ensure you have a mix of content. One of the number one things or mistakes, well, I guess growth opportunities I see a lot of bar associations do is they have either all first party content where it's all, we're doing this, we did this, we won this, we did this. And that's great. But if you have too much of that, it just looks like marketing and PR for your organization rather than really celebrating, your members or celebrating or talking about the issues out there. You want to be seen as a thought leader and an active place or source of information about the issues that are important to your organization. And so that's why you want to make sure you have a mix of third-party content too. So news articles about things, if the rule of law is very important, and establishing the rule of law and upholding the rule of law, if there's articles out there that have nothing to do with your organization, you all didn't author it, none of your members did, but it really echoes the same type of, the same type of thing you'd be doing, that would be a great one to post. I've also seen consequently the other way, organizations that only post third-party content and don't celebrate their own accomplishments or their own members. So you really want a mix of those two things. So you can be seen as someone who's part of the conversations, but also showcasing what you're doing about it both. Like I said, delicate balance. Okay. And in terms of how you can set yourself up to easily share member and partner content, there's one little quick tip. So one of the few things I will say, if you don't listen to much else I say today, listen to this. Anybody that you are connected with or following on LinkedIn, you can click this bell icon that will appear to the right of their top kind of header information. That means you'll know every time they post on LinkedIn. So you won't get notified when they're liking things or commenting on them, just when they're posting. But it's a great way to make sure you don't miss when your members, put out their new job post or their new promotion post. The other thing too is, of course, if you're encouraging members to tag you in posts, anything that's related to your organization, then you will get a notification. So here's a member posted that several of us went to Georgetown Law School to do a roadshow and kind of doing this discussion with students around networking and interviewing. And so we were able to very quickly take that content and turn it into a post of our own by resharing it. But if they don't tag you in it and you don't have any bell turned on for that member, you might have missed that. So definitely make sure that you're doing that. All right. Oh yes, I guess I actually put an arrow in a circle there. Good to know. Okay, now another thing is you want to really make sure you're further optimizing your posts so people have the same reaction as David Rose from Schitt's Creek. We want people to be really excited about your post and all about it. So there's a few ways you can do that. And some of this, for those of you who attended my session at mid-year meeting, this will be a good review for you in case you didn't put any of this into place. So the 4 steps to creating an ideal post. First of all, get off the idea that it needs to be a nice, long, multi-paragraph post. I mean, length is not a bad thing. People think it is. It's really not. But honestly, at the end of the day, most attorneys will shy away from posting if they think they don't have enough language to post. You only need 2 lines of text. And these are short LinkedIn margin lines, so not long. It's fine if you have more than that. Just remember, the human eye will skip over big blocks of text. So you want a lot of blank space between your text. And because, again, the margins are so short on LinkedIn, it might only be 1 or 2 sentences per paragraph. So, and then you have another blank line. So don't worry about that. And then the other thing you want to do is have a really compelling headline or first sentence. Rather than, I just wrote this article, instead have the theme of it. What are the risks of discrimination and bias inherent with using generative AI? That's a great first line that if it's anybody who's focused on generative AI, which by the way is a lot of people right now, that will get them to read the rest of your post better than I just wrote this article. And then the last 2 lines of your post, you always want a blank line after you finish your text, and then 3 to 5 hashtags, both general and specific ones. And we're going to do a little deeper dive. We're actually going to do a little deeper dive into each of these items that we've covered here on how you pick your hashtags. The other thing too is you want to mention speakers or if there's a host organization in the post, but you want to be careful, and we'll talk about this, how much you mention those folks, because it can reduce the visibility of your post if you tag or mention speakers who don't end up commenting or reacting to it. So let's go through and look at this a little bit. Let's talk about how you create a catchy opening line. So using a quote or using a theme is a great way to do that. So for instance, here's a post that my company put up around a session at a big legal tech conference. And this was exact language that one of the panelists had used. So we ended up putting up the handout that was given out to people on this specific 2 types or 3 types of project management. But using that sexy newcomer language in the first line definitely got people's attention enough that they clicked that see more link, which at the end of the day, you're never going to know what's in the LinkedIn algorithm, but the dirty little secret is there's an algorithm LinkedIn is running in the background, scoring your post for how popular it is and how much people engage with it. Even people clicking this little see more link is one of the things that will indicate to LinkedIn your post is popular and they should show it in more people's news feeds. So that's why you want that really compelling headline at the start to get people to read it. Here's another one. This organization, they had a member who she was an executive coach and did a session on receiving and implementing feedback in, at the end of January, beginning of February. So when a lot of people are going through their annual review process, and instead of saying like, oh, what do you need to know before you head into your annual review, really kind of played into people who dread the annual review process and get really nervous about it, and sort of already trying to make it more of a growth mindset, an opportunity to re-examine. Here's a couple more. As I mentioned with member profiles, rather than just saying we're so excited to profile so-and-so, use their own compelling language, their quote to start off the post. That is more interesting to read than actually just making people click the link to find out more about that person. And I always tried to make sure that the social media has content covered both in the images and the text. Some people are more visual and they're going to just read that image. And they might find, oh, that's compelling. Maybe I'll go read the text now. Some people are the opposite. Here's another one that I just put up recently. I had this not great selfie, a little blurry, but I had just come back to a company that I had been at for 16 years and then gone for 6 years. And so I wanted to put up a post from a generative AI event I went to, but I also had these great quotes, and all of the information was sort of company confidential for the people at this luncheon. They were like, no screenshots, Samina. So I kind of did a little bit of a hybrid approach of, okay, I'm going to use a photo, which gets a lot of attention, but I'm also going to use these quotes about AI. And it ended up being one of my most popular posts so far this year. So again, if you're not sure what to say, see if there's a way you can kind of summarize what the post or the article or the webinar or whatever is about, or a quote. Okay, so let's look at some of the text that was used with these. One of the number one other big mistakes I see is when people will say, we had this great event, here's a link to the recording, here's a link to the blog. Well, guess what? You're likely not to get people to click that link. People are busy. Can you give them a few takeaways in your social media post? So here's one. We've got that initial catchy sentence. We talk about what the program was, and then we give 3 takeaways set out almost as bullet points. And then even a call to action at the end, encouraging people to sign up for our next one. Hopefully they like these and they're like, oh, that would have been a good program for me to attend. Maybe I need to take a look at the next on the menu program they're doing. So here's another example. When your organization is quoted in an article or something, you can use quotes or teasers. So for instance, we've got a quote from the article here, and using it again at the top of the text, and then also saying, hey, what else would someone find out if they bothered to click this link? We're going to find out how the founder's experiences inspired her to start this. So you've got your quote, you've got your teaser of what you'll get if you really invest a little bit more time. So in terms of these things, don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel each time. Whoever is going to be working on your social media, I think someone asked about this in the chat, and I believe Emma or Beth or someone awesomely already put the link in, but there's free tools out there. There's, an Adobe Creator. I use Canva, and a lot of my clients use Canva, and it's it's got a pretty low bar to entry, I feel like, if you're not a graphic designer, but you're a lawyer like me. And you can just create these templated forms so that every time you're doing, a member spotlight, or you've got a profile of somebody you want to highlight, you've got it all ready to go. And you're just inserting the new photo and the new quote and all of that person's biographical information. Or here's one with a testimonial from an event. And some of my clients have had really great luck sending out surveys after events or popping them up and then getting testimonials that could be used. Because rather than the organization saying, we had a great session on large language learning models, they've got somebody who attended actual words, their own words about how valuable that was and why they're glad they attended. So you can make, really simple ones for articles. So here's a couple of different ones that one of my clients used for articles where, we tried to have some image that related to whatever the topic was about or the article was about. Sometimes, we'll do more or less of the article name and publication depending on how relevant it is to our audience. And this is great too, because I will tell you, I can't tell you how many different members of my different client organizations have said, I'm so glad that you guys put this out on social media because my own firm didn't promote this. And so they're really grateful. You're really helping amplify your members as well. So let's talk about some event summary templates. What you're going to use depends on how much content you have. Sometimes there might have been an official photographer and maybe it was a long webinar and you have a lot of information you can put up. So for instance, here's how I interspersed quotes and photos from a recent event that a couple of different bar associations, DC, came together for. So we were able to showcase what the event was about. We were able to show different photos of different speakers throughout the event, of different members of the different organizations who came together, and to talk, even share some of the different insights. Were you surprised by that? And I loved this quote. I was shocked that 70% of Black women have experienced this at work, but not, because I've been a Black woman my whole life. And even, you don't even necessarily have to identify everybody in all of the photos. You would just want to make sure at your event that people know that you're going to be taking photos, put them on social media. This is something you can have a release for, or you can ask the people, like, hey, we'd like to put this up. Are you okay with it? And then a call to action to really encourage further future attendance. So that was an event where we had a lot of content, and that was great. But you'll see over here on the right, sometimes you don't have that much content to work with. So this was a webinar. So first of all, we didn't have great photos, but we were able to get those 3 takeaways. And so we put together a PDF for loading on LinkedIn and a video for other platforms where we showcased photos of each of the speakers and then a few of the different quotes or, takeaways they gave for people who came to that event. And then the last slide encouraging people attend the next one of this series. So you can still make a nice and quick little, this is a template that this organization created. Now they use it before events with one photo of one speaker and one quote from the speaker and space those out over 4 weeks. And then after, they've got this ready to go. And it literally takes one email asking for, please give 3 takeaways. So this is something you could even have your program chairs do before or after events. Sorry, that video always wants to play. So now another thing you need to think about is, we're talking a lot about LinkedIn today, but your organization probably has multiple different platforms. And, if you weren't at my mid-year session, I will say you don't need to be across all platforms. You need to figure out where the audience is that you're trying to reach. So this is something I talk about a lot. I just consulted with an author who's got a young adult book coming out in the fall. And I was like, hey, LinkedIn is great, maybe to reach publishers, but you need to be on Instagram and TikTok because that's where the teens are. I can tell you from my own teens. So, think about where your audience is and then think about how you optimize content for different platforms. So, a PDF carousel on LinkedIn is great because people can just easily click through the different images and it's just a PDF you make where you're putting up different slides. And that's a great one because sometimes people don't want to wait for a video to play. They just want to click through. Or sometimes you might want a video, and especially on Twitter and Instagram, you're limited to 4 images on Twitter/X. And on Instagram, it's just not always going to load well, although you could make a reel out of it. But if you go ahead and make a video, and the nice thing about this is some of these platforms like Canva, with the click of a button, you can say, please resize for Facebook, please resize for Instagram, please resize with just a click. So it makes it really efficient for you to do this. The other thing too is you have to think about modifying your text. Obviously, you have 180 characters on X Twitter, you know, unless you've got whatever Elon Musk is selling now to get you to buy a subscription where you can get more characters. And then if you're using Instagram, you can't put links on Instagram directly. So you would need to use some type of free social media linking account like Linktree, and then your text would have to change. Instead of saying register here, you say register at the link in our bio. You put a link to that free social media linking account in your bio. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then you really want to make sure you're optimizing your posts for each platform. So for instance, I think both Instagram and Facebook have stories now, where you can have a quick story made out of your post and it appears at the top of the screen. Well, stories on Instagram get much more engagement from your followers than posts do. And if you're putting, you know, it's generally like a single image story on Instagram, you might want to add stickers or some kind of moving element to an image. So it gives you almost a second bite at the apple. All right, now let's talk a little bit about links. And I promise we're going to stop for questions in just a minute. But in terms of links are not all built the same. It often depends on who built the website, who put the link up. But sometimes you'll see when you add a link into the text of your post on LinkedIn, a nice image will appear like this. So here was a recent article I wrote, and I love that the organization that published this had this lovely image, and the way they loaded it, when I put the URL in my text, this loaded. And so what was nice about that, let me go back, is I could actually erase out that link from my text and people could just click on the image to read the article. Now, sometimes that doesn't happen. So, and I don't know if it's the way the websites are set up, but I know with this client of mine, there's a link to a general events page rather than an individual link to each event. Now, there's a way the organizers can get me an individual link, but if I put the link up in my post, it puts up this weird gray box that says member sign up here. It is very not attractive. It's not getting anybody to click on that. At least it's not doing any help. We have to hope the text is compelling enough. So I have to actually X out of, I think I just went somewhere I didn't mean to. So give me 1 second. I think I just went to the actual link for it. Pardon me. Let me get back to my slide deck. So what's helpful is instead, okay, looks like nothing wants to load, but I'm going to explain it to you. You'll wow, it just keeps wanting to take me back there. Okay, let me stop sharing for 1 second and I'll pull that back up. What you can basically do is not include the link, as you'll erase the link out and you'll add your image first, and then you will be able to add the link as part of your text so that you'll be able to see the image there, which is great. And you'll be able to also, and sorry, I'm just getting this back. You'll also be able to have the link there in the text. So let me just get back, sorry, loading everything back up here. You'll just want to use some emojis or something to draw attention to that link in your text. So if you give me 1 second, I will get that back up for you. This is where I need my Jeopardy music while I make you all wait to see this. Giving it a second here. I know it wants to load. Let me slideshow again and let me share. Okay, give me 1 second. Where is my sharing? This is why people say I'm very authentic, I think, because I make mistakes, but as long as you own it, it's good. Then people, that is not the right thing I'm sharing. Okay, hopefully you are all seeing. Can someone just confirm for me that you are with the hands up or a thumbs up that you can see the seamless links image? Hopefully, anyone? Bueller? Okay, I saw a raised hand.
When the image doesn't load. Is that what you want to see?
I'm sorry?
We see the slide titled Seamless Links when the image
Yes.
doesn't load.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. Okay, so how you would go about it if you have one of these where the image doesn't let you replace it with a different image, you'll X that out and you'll click on the image to upload your own image. And then you insert your link back into your text, but use some emojis or something so that it's noticeable in your text. And if you have a really long, ugly URL, like look at this one at the bottom, that was what the URL was for this event. You can use, again, a free tool like tinyurl to create something that's even custom, right? So we've got this Got Skills leadership series we're doing this organization. And so we made it the Got Skills Fireside Chat because that was what the organization was. Okay, good. And I'm seeing that people are saying they can see it. So thank you for that. Okay, so a little bit more about links. Remember, we talked about on Instagram that you cannot put links into Instagram. They won't be clickable and they will just frustrate the heck out of your users. So you can get a free account with Linktree, or there's other ones where you'll be able to put links to individual events or to even your other social media platforms. And then you'll link that in the header of your Instagram account. And so you can see, you'll just change the text you would have put on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn to say register at the link in our bio. And then when people go to your bio and click your Linktree account, they would get right to this. So they could click into the different things you had linked there. Now let's talk for a minute about mentioning or not mentioning folks. So in a post, you would think, oh, I want to tag everybody so that, oh, they'll all see it and they'll all like it and they'll all comment and they'll all reshare it and my post will be very popular. And that is lovely in the utopian world where people have all the time in the world to do all the things they want to do. The reality is people are in trial, people are in arbitration, people have a sick kid, people are on vacation, whatever people are doing, they may not see that, or they might see it, but not have time to deal with it. Or maybe they haven't gone to my earlier session and they don't know what to say or how to comment. Every person that you tag, whether it's a speaker, an individual account or a company account, your post visibility is going to be reduced by LinkedIn by 50% until each person comments or at least reacts, at least hits that heart or thumbs up button. So you want to really be careful about mentioning folks in your post. And there's an easy way around that. So, and Robin allowed me to use this as a Glamour Don't post because this was a growth opportunity for Robin that she learned this. A post like this, I mean, luckily a lot of you are really active on social media and do everything you can to amplify what NCBP is doing. But if every single one of these people, until every single one comments or reacts, Robin's post visibility is going to be shrunk down by LinkedIn. And especially when you tag this many people, LinkedIn starts to wonder if you're spamming people. Does everybody want to tag Bill Gates in their post because Bill Gates commenting on it would get a lot of visibility? Yes. But if you're not connected to Bill Gates, that's not great. So I don't recommend doing that. What I recommend doing is instead of tagging everybody in the post itself, you can tag them in a comment. So my one organization just had a Supreme Court visit for all their different mentees, well, not a select group of mentees and mentors that won the lottery to go. Rather than tag all of those busy law students and attorneys in the post itself, I added it in a comment down here. And there is one thing too that, if you're posting from the organization's account, you can amplify that account's post by commenting on it as yourself. And so that's something I do a lot as well, rather than commenting as the organization. So, and I went through and I tagged every single person that I had the ability to tag on LinkedIn, with a very innocuous comment, like, so glad you were all there to represent Tapwell, the organization. There's no penalty. You can make multiple comments and tag multiple people in the comments. That's fine. just not in your actual post. Okay, let's talk a little bit about hashtags. So in terms of hashtags, you know, we talked about having, looks like my stop sign came up before and after. You know, if you have more than 5 hashtags, LinkedIn will penalize that because it starts looking like spam. And on Instagram, you know, hashtags are great. You want more hashtags. But on LinkedIn, you've got to have that limited. On X Twitter, you will by necessity have that limited because of the character limit. So you also want to think too about what are hashtags. You know, your hashtags serve a couple of different purposes. So hashtags both serve as search terms. People might actually go out and search by these terms or even follow those terms. And this is more popular on other platforms than LinkedIn, I would say. I would say this is more popular on platforms, you know, Instagram, Twitter, X, that type of thing. But also, your hashtags will serve to summarize your post. So for instance, the Women's Bar Association that I work with put up a post the first day, the first female Solicitor General on her first day of work argued a US Supreme Court decision. You know, already we know fewer women argue at the Supreme Court level than men, and it was the first female Solicitor General doing that. So all the news coverage out there was how more often she was interrupted by the justices than any male Solicitor General before her. We didn't want that negative part of it. So we didn't comment on that in our post itself, but in the hashtags, we put grace under pressure or grace under fire, I think it was. Something like that, kind of a nod to it without actually using the text for that. So there are things like that you can do. And also, you know, it summarizes what the post is about. If someone looks at your first line and looks at your image, you know, but also if they look at your hashtags, they'll see, oh, this is about generative AI. I didn't realize that. Or this is specifically about, you know, large language, you know, learning models. So a combination of general, popular, and specific hashtags is a good one. With Instagram, you want popular hashtags, and you can search by those hashtags at the top of Instagram. And I see a couple of comments here, and God bless you, Emma, for answering those while I'm just talking on here. And then I would say, because your bar association's lawyers, you know, this is changing every day as people move to Blue Sky or Threads or other platforms. But if you are posting on X Twitter, Law Twitter and Appellate Twitter are very popular hashtags for the legal community, from, you know, practicing private firm lawyers to in-house folks to legal ops folks to a lot of law professors. So those are great hashtags if you're going to be there. Okay, I have talked an awful lot for 45 minutes. What questions do you guys have? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask them, or to put them in the chat. I know some questions you've already been putting in, but questions?
Hi, Samina, this is Anna. Can you talk about hashtags a little bit more?
Yeah.
How do you craft an engaging hashtag? Like, are there any additional tips on that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of LinkedIn, you know, I don't use as many vanity hashtags, you know, it's good, you know, like this new leadership series we have at the Women's Bar Association, they called it the Got Skills leadership series because it was all about let's help our members build skills and let's have really senior, powerful women, you know, global chairpersons of their firms be the ones speaking about this and their lessons learned. So we made a hashtag Got Skills. Nobody else on LinkedIn is using that hashtag but us, I'm pretty sure. But people see that and start associating it with that. You know, we did another one, Meet a Member Wednesday. We decided we wanted our member profiles put up on Wednesdays every time, so it's something people could kind of count on and expect. So we started doing that, or Student Spotlight. You know, these are not ones that are necessarily popular with other accounts on LinkedIn, but it's just like kind of something that catches what it's about without, you know, without being too vanity. I will say, if you have a hashtag that is so many words, it's hard to read, don't do that. You know, like I will lose interest after about, you know, 10 letters. You can search by hashtags on any platform in the search bar just by putting the hashtag and the word, and you can see how many people are following that. So that's a good one. I used to do AI a lot. I've been doing generative AI a lot more now because so many people are following that. It was interesting, you know, a lot of my organizations have me not using DEI as a hashtag now because they feel like it's just so inflammatory in light of all the challenges to diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And so we've changed it to representation matters because we feel like that gets at the topic without being red meat buzzwords for certain individuals. And it's really what it's about. Like, look, you know, when Latino children saw Encanto and saw kids on the screen that looked like them, not white, blonde-haired, you know, heroes, it meant something to them. It made them go, oh, wow, like that's me up on the screen, somebody who looks like me. So, you know, thinking about, you know, seeing what else is out there and what other people are using is big. And one I forgot to put here, but if you have an event or conference, always try to figure out what the event or conference hashtag is. And as organizers with your bar associations, try to get one going and try to put it out there. You know, it's the ABA mid-year meeting, or is it ABA mid-year 2024? Like, own that and control that so that if people are out there tweeting and posting about it, they'll use it. And then you can go search by it and find all those posts and make sure you're engaging with them as the organization. And you can direct everyone else like, hey, if you're not at our mid-year meeting, like follow this hashtag so you can catch all the awesomeness that is happening here. And hopefully you'll join us next year. So that's what I would say around hashtags.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, sorry, Anna. Hopefully that helped give a little more insights.
It did. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions from anybody? Or, you know, I know we have some very savvy social media people on here. I see Dan Cotter, I see Patrick. If y'all want to chime in on your thoughts on anything, or Mark, please feel free. And I'm just picking the people I know. I'm sure there are many other savvy folks of you on here as well. But if not, we can move forward into our next section. And
Oh,
also check. Yeah.
Hey, Samina. Yeah. Here's one thing I keep hearing from some professionals is the time of day when you post, and that some of the algorithms get more eyeballs depending, you know, when people are more likely to be at their computer and things like that. Are some of these concepts, they still hold from a few years back, or has that been evolving?
It's really interesting. I'm glad you brought this up because I didn't cover timing. So I used to tell my clients I'm only going to post for you between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and I'm going to prioritize Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I've seen that you get a lot of engagement when you post when other people are not. So 9 to 10 a.m. is a pretty crowded, busy time for posting. I will say that, you know, I generally tend not to post too much after 2 p.m. on a Friday afternoon because I just feel like it gets a little bit lost as people are trying to finish out their work day, their work week, and approach their personal time. But I've gotten a lot of engagement by posting on a Saturday or Sunday because fewer people are on LinkedIn. And you can always repost that at another time and be like, hey, if you missed this last week, and get 2 bites at the apple, which is something I should have really talked about too, is don't hesitate to repost old content, whether that's a Throwback Thursday post or a different look at it. Every article that my clients are featured in, we will make 2 or 3 different posts out of that and just use those over time with a different quote. But yeah, in terms of the timing, you know, people are generally not on LinkedIn in the evening as much, so I tend not to post on LinkedIn then. But Instagram and Twitter, and Facebook, they are. You know, when it's holiday time, so I'm not going to be posting as much on LinkedIn because if people are at work during the holidays or in the dead cheese week between Christmas and New Year's, they're not going to be on LinkedIn. They're just resentfully getting their work done so they can get back to their families. But they will be on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook because that's where they personally want to spend their time on their downtime, or where they're spending their time while they're resentfully doing or not doing their work during cheese week. I don't know why I just named it cheese week, but I guess I did eat a lot of cheese this year. But so that's my thoughts sort of on timing. Carl, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I mean, let me ask a quick question, and it's about whether you could get greater engagement by people liking or celebrating or whatever versus reposting, and whether you encourage associations or users to conspire to get others to do one or the to do something that will spread the message farther and faster.
Yes, that is such a great question. And we covered this a lot in the January session. We're going to cover it a little bit more in the next session, but commenting is the number one thing that will drive visibility and popularity of your post. More than clicking the thumbs up or the heart, more than actually reposting it. You would think, oh, I like this post so much that Emma put up that I'm going to repost it as my own. You can do that, but comment first, because you're indicating to LinkedIn you've made a whole new post of it. What are they going to promote now? Are they going to promote yours or the organization's? But if you've got a post that 20 different members have commented on, or maybe 10 members commented on, but your organization is responding to each one, that's a popular post. So it's much better to comment than to like or react. And something we talked about too is when you comment, you're putting yourself in the conversation. So for individual attorneys, for your own social media and your own personal brand, maybe you don't have time to post that week. Just go on and engage with other people's posts. It puts you in conversations with everybody else who liked or engaged with that post. 9 times out of 10, when you see a stranger looking you up, it's somebody else who commented or liked the same post. So it really expands your visibility and your network. And if you want to repost it, that's fine. It's giving you content you can post from yourself. And that's great, because it may be, sometimes I've done that and said, I wanted to put up a post on the anniversary of January 6th because I live 3 blocks from the Capitol, but this blog says everything I would have said. Read this instead. So you can do that, but just encourage people to comment. And I will say, for really important posts for my client organizations, they will, because they have me, I know all organizations can't do this, but because they have a paid social media consultant, I will send it out to the board and say, hey, I've just put up this profile of, so-and-so. I really would love to see engagement. Here's the links to it. Can you please add a comment? And for some of my other paid clients, like corporate clients, I will actually suggest comments that people can make, because, I work with a small law firm and the partners are like, we don't have time. So I just learned they won't do it unless I make it as turnkey as possible. Again, I don't think that, volunteers have time to necessarily do all this. But if you've got a big social media campaign around something, it might at least be good to, at a board or council meeting, to remind people like, hey, what can you do that takes 30 seconds without getting up from your desk or opening your wallet? Comment on our posts, people. Like, that's the number one thing you can do that would really help us. And again, it amplifies, if the organization's mission matches your own personal values, it's going to help share your personal brand with your clients and prospective clients also. Okay. So, and actually one more thing, if you are resharing a post, please don't just put up a blank reshare of it. That does not help you. No one's going to bother reading it. If I'm your client, I don't know why I should read this. Add 1 or 2 lines, just like we talked about with any other post, saying why it resonated with you, why they should click on it, what they'll get out of taking the time to click on it. Okay, if there's no other questions, we're going to move forward. Okay, so what we're actually going to do is move into a little bit of hands-on practice, and we'll be putting you into breakout rooms. Again, not scary. You're going to work together. But basically, in just a minute here, Emma and Beth are going to put in the chat this recent post that NCBP put up, and about a session from the mid-year meeting, and a blog that they put up. And this is not to pick on NCBP. It is just to give you guys some practice on how you could make that LinkedIn post more compelling. So you're going to get in your groups, and the things you're going to discuss and then come back ready to share with the whole group is what different, if you would have different opening line you might have crafted for this post. What takeaways you might have added to the text, and or if you would have put any takeaways to the image, what those would have been. And what one link, oh, sorry if I had the wrong link there, Beth. That might have been my fault. What one link you might include in your post, because you'll see this post has 2 links. And I didn't really say that, but I don't recommend putting multiple links in a post. I recommend 1 link in a post. If you need to add more in the comments, you can. And then what 3 to 5 hashtags you might add.
It should be everybody, I think.
Okay. All right. So how was that? How did that feel? Was it less?
Surprisingly, well, what's interesting is sitting down as a group and then just being asked to be creative
Yes.
presented a challenge. I mean, that's what you're asking us to do, is to be creative. And, it's the middle of a workday for most of us. So I don't know that we're all thinking creatively.
I totally get that. I totally get that. But hopefully it helped you at least figure out when you were in a more creative frame of mind, like how you would look at the materials you have and come up with something different. Did anybody come up with a different headline?
We didn't get there yet.
Okay.
We came up with how to get there, and our idea was to pull a quote from the speakers from the video, but we didn't have an exact title or a headline.
Okay. Okay. I like
Um,
that.
Yeah, I threw out the
Samina, the-
suggestion of
Oh.
possibly starting the post with "in case you missed it" as an abbreviation, and then taking out the first sentence. Depending on like how formal or informal you want to be on your social. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we said we turned the title into a question, or sort of, how can bars collaborate to protect democracy, be inspired by, this link. Because we wanted to get that part at the end about find yourself inspired up closer to the top.
That's a great instinct. It's almost reverse newsletter style sometimes with your text, because you just figure people might not make it till the end. I know the first room I was in had an interesting idea about how to make a catchy opening line.
Seema, I'm sorry, Samina, were you referring? I think you were in my group with me.
Yeah.
This is Sufi checking in from Connecticut. We had a couple of lines, but one of them was a little bit more cheeky. It was remember Schoolhouse Rock and how a bill becomes law. Here's NCBP's take, and I don't know if it was too light, but that was one suggestion. And then the other one was how bar associations and businesses can collaborate to promote democracy. It was a headline. That was 3 sentences into what Robin had shared.
Yeah. And I like that. And you can do a little bit of a cheeky or lighthearted opening line, because you have the rest of your text there where you can get into here's the hard-hitting takeaways on what truly, corporate law departments and bar associations can come together to do. So that's okay to do, and that will get people's attention. I think all of these are great ideas, actually, guys. You want something that breaks the noise. And I didn't even, the NCBP headline was nice in terms of like, hey, we can still take action. But I think your ideas of kind of flipping it a little bit to get the theme of the session up higher in that first line, or a quote from someone, there was a civil rights person, I think activist or something, quoted but down below. I didn't even watch the video, but that's a great way to get quotes. I'm always trying to get transcripts of sessions that I moderated or spoke on so I can get those quotes and use them. I think these are all great ideas, and just the general idea of, collaboration. One of the ideas I had was, can we use that African proverb? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others, or something, just to get on this idea of, truly what this panel sounds like suggested was come together, work together, get out of your silos, and you can do more for democracy. So I think you guys had right ideas there. Were there did people have ideas on takeaways? Would you add takeaways into your text or your image? And just as a reminder, this was the post. It gave the link to the recording and the link to the blog. And a great
I think
picture.
we came up with yes. I think we came up with the idea, it wasn't me, but to move the second link into the comments.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, you want one or the other, but just to have two there, it's hard for people to know, and then which one's attaching to the image if people click it. It's always, I think it's always good to isolate. Other ideas on takeaways? I mean, the nice thing, and this is why I really picked this post, is there's literally bullet pointed takeaways in this blog. But if nobody clicked to the blog, they would never know it, right? And so that's why, you know, you don't have to use these takeaways, but NCBP has already, or whoever, really nicely laid them out for you. But there's other
Yes.
takeaways you could use throughout here as well, right? From the different speakers.
So Samina, let me ask a quick question. So I mean, if there are bullet points that are takeaways, should each of the bullet points be a separate post? I mean, are you trying to sort of flood the market to make sure that somebody interacts? I mean, there are different things that draw people's attention, or are you better off just, you know, one, here are the takeaways?
No, I mean, I think, you know, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go back through to where I had a post that had some of the takeaways. I think it's good to do a few takeaways in your post, right? You've got a few takeaways right here. Here's a catchy opening line. Here's what it's from. Here's a few takeaways. And we did that even with, you know, I interspersed them in a video.
Right.
You know, I don't seem to be able to, I interspersed them in a video here about, wow, nothing wants to load, or put them on different images, but you're getting, you can't ever count on people taking the time to click out to a link. So you want to make sure they learn what, you know, I've heard people say, oh, I don't want to put the takeaways there, Samina, because I want to force them to click. Well, guess what? You're not winning that battle when it's like they're going to get home to their kid or they're going to get a motion they have to finish or whatever. You want them to get the info, the really awesome salient points that you made while they're there. So whether that's putting it here in the image or putting it in the text.
Samina, this is Anna. I think the best advice I've heard was, if you do give a couple of takeaways and you give the link, then you're kind of serving both sets of people. The ones who will never watch the video because they will never find the time, but they will find the time to read the 3 or the 4 or the 5 takeaways. And the ones who will find the time to watch the video, whether because they have the time or they just prefer watching videos to reading the text. So that way, if you do both, you're kind of capturing the two different groups.
And that's why I started putting takeaways in little carousels, like what you see on the screen, because I realized sometimes people weren't reading the text. And I'm like, I want them to get this, and they'll click 4 times to get this rather than scroll down. And for videos, when my kids were little, I was frequently laying in bed with someone in the dark and I could not play a video aloud, but I could scroll text and frequently did. So probably a better parent than me. That was my gig. A lot.
So Samina, I have one quick question, and I want to let you get back to wrapping up with the rest of your slides. But we did put the names of all of the speakers in the post, and I'm still a little confused about your point. Like, are you saying that until all 4 of those people that we named commented on the post, it wouldn't get visibility? I don't really understand that.
It would get some visibility, but for each of these 4 people, until they comment or like it, the visibility will be reduced by LinkedIn. It won't be shown in as many news feeds. That being said, when you have speakers who spoke on it, they're more likely to comment or at least like it. But I generally, with speakers, not with everyone else, take the time to be like, hey, and you can even do this really easily. You can send it via LinkedIn to those speakers and say, hey, just put this up. Would appreciate it if you'd go like it and or add a 1-sentence comment, or I'll send an email. Or I'll tell them.
Sorry. As soon as you put somebody's name, it automatically becomes like, I don't know, part of this algorithm, or is there
as soon as you as soon as you click post. And so if there are people, like I used to do social media for a global law firm, there were partners who are never going to get around to linking, liking, or commenting. And so I wouldn't necessarily tag them if it was just them. If it was a bunch of attorneys, I probably couldn't not tag a partner or get in all kinds of law firm political trouble, as you can imagine, from tagging associates and counsel and some partners and not others. And I'd just be like, well, this one's just not going to get the visibility, not my fault. Or I'd tag people in the bottom and just be like, you know, great insights here, Patrick, you know, and then I've tagged them in the comment, but it's not going to penalize our post. So
Okay,
it's a delicate balancing game, but with people who are actual speakers, I really do like to tag them unless there's just tons and tons of them. Yeah, Anna, question.
So, Amina, so would you say prior to our presentations, we should be asking / gently telling our speakers, we are going to be posting about this on social media, and we ask you that you comment / respond to our post after your presentation to help us drive social media engagement?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can say, like, you know, we want to make sure that you get publicity out of this as well, that people know about your insights and that you took the time to do this program for us. So
Okay.
you can make it a win-win. All right.
Thanks.
So I want to, because we're rapidly running out of time, I'm going to shift back to the rest of the presentation, but this part is all much shorter than what we already went through. And I can stick around a little bit if there are more questions, because we've kind of dipped into all of our question time here. So in terms of driving engagement with your content, this is where it really comes to getting your members on board, you know, getting them to say, hey, don't open your wallet. I mean, do open your wallet. Obviously, we want you to donate. Do take the time to come to programs, but this is something that's so easy. You can do every week in 10 minutes. So first thing, you want to encourage people to add the organization to their LinkedIn profile for sure, because that lists all of their leadership roles, you know, and it's pretty easy to do. There's a volunteer section that you can add to your LinkedIn profile if you don't have it already, and you'll be able to add a role. And as you start slow typing the organization, it will pop up so you can link to it. You don't have to put a lot under here. I think I pulled this from Anna's. So sorry, Anna, you're my guinea pig. If you don't have this section on your LinkedIn profile, at the top of your profile, you'll be able to add a new profile section. So just look for the volunteering one. But that means they will get all of your updates and that you will get notified as well when they're posting. Then you can also request members follow your page if they haven't added you. Now, an individual has to do this, not the organization, but you can invite connections to follow the page. So it's a good thing when people are being, you know, become new members of the organization and you're sending out a welcome email or whatever to ask them there to follow the page. And then you can also do it here from LinkedIn. And then in terms of, you know, moderating content, right, is commenting is the #1 way, as I mentioned with Carl's question, to get people to engage. And it's going to help build those relationships. So you want to encourage people to comment and not just like, because again, that's the #1 thing that really boosts visibility via the algorithm, but it's also going to deepen your relationship with them. If you comment on their content, they're likely to comment on yours and vice versa. And it puts you in that conversation. So, you know, my organizations tend to comment as the organization on different posts, right? So after I put up that Supreme Court video and I, in the comments, tagged every single law student and lawyer mentor who attended with us, then a bunch of them kept reposting it from their own page. So I was able to add a quick comment, nothing super earth-shattering, just glad you could join us, getting it out there. We'll do that right away when members have something like an award they received or something, and we're not able to post on it maybe until later in the month with accomplishments. We can add a comment right away, or we can repost it. So sample comments that you can make as well, you know, whether you're the individual now commenting on the organization's post or a member has posted, you know, maybe Robin comments on a session that she spoke on, you know, different comments you can really quickly add as an organization to their posts. And then I know a big one is about what to do with negative comments, if you delete or do not delete those. So I will first preface this with, this can be a legal question. And so if you have legal counsel, consult your legal counsel. but you really want to think about, and this is why it's important to have a social media policy. Does it involve offensive speech? I think you're okay to delete a comment someone makes that involves offensive speech. Is the comment off point and irrelevant? Are they asking you to buy their crypto? And think twice, if it does involve a genuine complaint about your organization before deleting it, that may look like bad PR and censorship. So you may want to think about that before you just delete it and say, these are interesting points. We'll be messaging you. You can put that out publicly, right? And again, consulting your legal counsel early and often. Okay, part of this didn't load. That's okay. We're just going to load it anyway. It looks like my GIF didn't load, but you want to encourage your members to comment. Again, this is the easiest thing they can do. One of my organizations has a social media data report that I prepare that they send to their board every month that shows what were the most popular posts, what got the most comments, what got the most engagement, that type of thing. And there's always 2 asks on what we want them to do the next month with social media. And number 1 is comment on the whatever XYZ post. We're going to put out the golf classic post. We're going to put out the annual dinner post. We're going to put out the Woman Lawyer of the Year post. Please add a comment. So just trying to encourage them to do that. And just remind them how easy it is. I think I showed this in January, but just like how little time it takes to just do a couple of things on LinkedIn. And you can even, I set a note on my calendar every Friday, 30 minutes off on my calendar to look at what my social media looks like for this week and next week. If I've been really busy, if I've been in presentations and meetings or on trips and I didn't get to post a lot, I at least want to go on and comment on some posts. And I will look to my own organizations that I volunteer with first, because those are organizations that likely have content that meets my personal brand. It's about representation. It's about the rule of law. It's about access to justice, whatever is important to me. And then resharing a post, adding a 2-line sentence at the top of a post is a great way to reshare something. So, I just put out a post for my Women's Bar Association of a session that the Morgan Lewis and the Reed Smith global co-chairs are going to be speaking on about team intelligence and how that differentiates a manager from a leader. I'm going to that myself, even if I wasn't their social media consultant, because that's content I want to get. And I'm going to reshare that from my own page because I want other people in DC to know about this event and to come, And then the high is kind of the 30 minutes if you're going to share twice a week and comment a few times. So I know that was a little rushed at the end. I think we have maybe a minute left, but I do have, other ways I can help, but do you guys have any specific questions for me? Oh, and by the way, that is my QR code there. So please do link in with me. I, at some point, was going to put my LinkedIn in the chat and then I never got around to it, but I think you can just use the QR code. And if you're not all connected with each other, you should be. Connect because you'll all be posting content you might want to engage with. And then, if Anna and Maria are not following each other, all of Anna's followers, will see when she does something with Maria's posts or reshares Maria's posts. So it's a way to boost your own visibility as well in your own bar associations.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts, other questions? You're all stunned into silence. You're already on social media posting as we speak. Which, by the way, I'm not saying you need to post from this, but anytime you're on a webinar, you can do this. You can just literally, if you write down 3 takeaways, you can go post about the webinar you went to. It's great for your own clients and colleagues to see, like, oh, Frances takes time out of her crazy busy workday to, figure out what she could do to, improve the practice of law. Or as a business owner, right? She takes time out. Marketing is not just a nice to have. There are so many lawyers out there who have that approach, and that is not the way to get clients, get promoted if you're an associate, et cetera, et cetera. Quiet excellence. I know Mark's heard this term from me, but quiet excellence does not get you promoted to anything or land you clients. Putting your head down and working your 80 hours and billing 60 or whatever of them. It's great for the moment, but does not get you promoted or clients. Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, I know that this session, I believe Beth and Emma recorded it, so there will be a recording available. And hopefully I'll look forward to crossing paths with you at least online, if not in person.